Hello everyone, welcome to Canteen Cup. My name is Scott. How's everybody today? Rainy day here today. Had to do some office work, and so now I'm just getting out a little bit, trying to check on my ground and see how wet it got, see if I can do some more work tomorrow. So far, it looks like we can get. I can pull my tractor out and pull some more logs. That's my neighbor firing in the background. Um, yeah, we're getting close. We getting ready to cut up these last logs and pull the last ones in the back there, and then we can start amending and tilling and planting. So that's a good news. So today I want to talk about fear. You know, in some of the forums I'm in, some of the things I watch, there's a lot of fear that people have, and a lot of it's generated fear. In other words, somebody else is kind of telling you you should be afraid and encourage you to buy things. I've been prepping for a long time, probably getting somewhere close to 45, 50 years. I started young as a teenager. And, I mean, prepping itself shouldn't be about fear. You shouldn't be prepping because you're afraid. You should be prepping because you know something's going to happen and you want to do things to mitigate, or mitigate or, tailor your response to a situation. I've seen a lot of things. I've lived through hurricanes. I've lived through tornadoes, not directly on me, but very nearby. I've been through lightning storms. I've seen ball lightning, which is a kind of a rarity, but I've seen it twice in my life. I've seen and been influenced by two nuclear power station meltdowns, 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl. I was in Germany when Chernobyl happened. I was in Tennessee when 3 Mile Island happened. And while, the distances, may seem like they're kind of far away, when you start thinking about a nuclear cloud going up in the sky and then traveling hundreds of miles like it did in Europe and then fall, that could be a little scary. But I've seen floods and I've seen riots and I've seen wars and rumors of wars, and people grab this stuff and then they generate fear and they try to make you afraid. People talk about EMP and they talk about the zombie apocalypse, and they generate this fear in you, which in turn generates anxiety, and then I think sometimes it affects your thinking, especially when it comes to preps. You gotta buy more bullets, or you gotta buy another gun, or you gotta buy another knife because the zombies are coming. And if you don't have this one particular knife or you don't have this one particular gun, you're gonna die. And I've seen it. But again, going back through, I've been through a lot of things that have happened, and I'm not talking about some doom porn piece of fiction that came out of somebody's mind. I'm talking about things I've actually lived through. And you know what? A lot of that stuff that people, amp up your fear about hasn't happened. But I can tell you that during times of blizzards, I've had to live through blizzards. I've had to live through extended power outages. But I can tell you that in all of those cases, I've never had to fire a shot. in some of those cases, I lost utilities. And in some of those cases, I lost my capability to go get supplies. But I've never had to, you know, walk an armed sentry post. I've never had to kill somebody as a civilian. I've never had to, I've never had to confront people. Nobody has come on my property for my stuff. Now, am I saying that you should never prepare for that? The answer is no. I said, however, you got to get your head in the right place and get it in the right priority. And what I mean by that is a lot of people are spending their time and their energy climbing the wrong tree. In other words, if the coconuts are in the tree over there, why are you climbing the tree over here that doesn't have any coconuts? And so, that being said, I think you need to really consider your priorities. And I've said them before, and I'll say them again, and that is, number one, do you have enough food? Number two, do you have enough water? Number three, can you maintain sanitary conditions? And number four, can you defend your family? That's my Amazon delivery. So, that being said, do you have enough food? Because in the scenarios that I've gone through, and even this COVID pandemic, and I've also been through the swine flu and the bird flu. I mean, I'm just naming things as I go along. I don't have a list, but I've been through these things, and some of you have too. And for the most part, our lives don't change a whole lot. But in most of the cases where I have gotten hit the hardest was I couldn't go out and get food. Blizzards or floods, bad weather, the COVID-19, I was restricted from going and getting food. So that tells me over my last 60-some years that food should be my number one priority, because all through my life, where I got hit the hardest was food. Now, I have food, and what I mean by me when I talk about food, I mean I had to go into my emergency supplies to get my food. I didn't run out of food, but that's what I count as a need. That I had to go into my preparations, into my extended food locker. That's what I've had to do the most. And then behind that, I've had a couple outages of water, so I keep water. And everybody should keep water anyhow, because that's, that's really about the most important thing you need immediately is water. And so that's what I worry about. And then I worry about, keeping myself clean and sanitary. Now, when I was in the Army, I was what they call the Field Sanitation NCO. So I had to learn all about the diseases and things that go along with not keeping yourself clean. And that stuff is killer. It's enough of a killer that the Army has a special school for it. And what does that mean? Well, can you take a bath? Can you wash your hands? Can you take a dump and have it, processed somewhere else where it's not in your backyard drawing flies? So those are the things I consider. Those are my primary areas of concentration when I talk about preparedness. Now, it's not fear-based, because every time that I've had to get into my food supplies, I had food supplies to get into, and it was more like, thank goodness I have this. I have food, I have water. But keeping yourself clean. I mean, those are the three things that affect most people after disasters. If you look back in our history, there's not a whole lot of zombie killing going on during our natural and man-made disasters. Now, I will put the caveat in there that if you're living in an urban area, an urban high population city like Los Angeles or San Francisco, Denver or New York, one of those places, yeah, you may have some zombies you have to shoot, but if you're a prepper, you shouldn't be there anyhow, because you should know better. Those are not safe places even in the best of times. But I'm talking about for those of us that have prepped and that have made or have taken steps to move away from that stuff, to get like out where I am here, where we don't have those problems. But yeah, if you're in zombie land, personal protection is higher up on your hierarchy than it is mine. Where I live out here, we just don't have those problems. Because like you heard, most of us have guns out here, and most of us are not afraid to use them. Now, getting on to, personal protection, should you be protecting yourself? Yes, you should. You should have a means, and, whatever that is for you, you should have a means to protect yourself, and you should be proficient in its use. Now, right now I'm doing a lot of heavy-duty homestaying, so I'm not going to the range every week, but you should at least go a couple times a year and at least be familiar with your weapon to be able to handle it and to be able to take immediate action if there's a jam or a malfunction. But you should have a means to protect your family. That's my number 4. It's not totally gone, but what I see is people are driving the fear that the zombies are going to come, and the Chinese are going to invade, and they're going to nuke the skies with EMP and send us back to the 1800s. And boy, you really need to buy this stuff if you're going to survive the apocalypse. How many of you saw that in some ad somewhere? To survive the apocalypse, you need. All right. So, getting back to the basics. Put down the doom porn books. Take, some of these rantings and carryings on in moderation. I'm not saying ignore them. Take them in moderation, but most of all, don't be afraid. Hopefully most of you out there have a belief in some faith, Christianity, Judaism, Muslim, whatever. Have faith in your God, whatever you call it. But quit scaring yourselves to death. It just leads you to other bad head issues like depression and bad things like that. I mean, enjoy life. Life is made to be fun, not to be worrying about all this stuff that's probably not going to happen in your lifetime. And even if it does, if you have the stuff I just talked about, more than likely you're going to be okay, unless you're in a troubled area, in which case you know better. So take care of it. But food, worry about your food. That's really where you need to be. Food production. Do you have to grow and have everything? No. But if you don't, have somebody who does, so that maybe you can trade. Maybe you have a neighbor who has cows and you have vegetables. And so you could work a deal, beef or meat for vegetables, something like that. Have something going. Develop your community. Know your neighbors. Know your friends. I mean, since I moved out here, I know more about the people around me out here than I did in any suburban or urban area. And how do I do it? I talk to them. That's all you got to do is just talk. So that's really all I got today. Like I said, get this fear out of your life. Really. I mean, quit reading the books, or at least reduce the number of these books, because I've had people quoting me fiction as fact. I would say I'm not an EMP fan, so when someone says, "Oh, EMP," I said, "Well, I don't believe it." "Oh, well, in the book, the second after, this is what happened." Wait a minute, that's fiction. That was in somebody's head. How many times has it happened here? So, but if you have the basics, live life, enjoy life. My wife and I, we talk about prepping stuff all the time, but it's not fear-based. It's like, today we started a list. Just to give an example, today we started a list of things that we were kind of lacking these past 2 months during the spring COVID pandemic. And so we started making a list that in the interim between the spring and the fall COVID, we know there's some other things we want to stock up on. And really the things that we're talking about are not hardcore survival stuff. It's the nice things to have. Like my wife wants to get some fast-acting yeast so she can make rolls, and she wants to have a little more flour than what we normally keep so she can do. I mean, we have buckets of wheat and we can make flour, but having 10 or 15 pounds of self-rising flour or bread flour, whatever she likes, it just makes it nice. And that's where we are. We're just kind of topping off, so to speak, and we're adding to our list things that we would like to have for the next pandemic. I mean, 40 years ago, this pandemic would have been tough because we don't have the things that we have today. This is posh. So anybody whining about the pandemic, you just need to stop. I mean, you've got cell phones, you've got text messaging, FaceTime, emails. 40 years ago, there wasn't any emails. There was no such thing as an email. People didn't have cell phones. We didn't have Amazon. We didn't have deliveries. We didn't have eBay. We didn't have that internet. So 40 years ago, it had been tough. So take care of yourselves. Take care of your family. Make sure you have enough food. Do what we're doing. Start a list of things that you missed during this quarantine and make sure you have them for the next one. That's practical preparedness. That's not fear-based. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Be ready. If you're ready, you shouldn't be afraid. And the reality is if you generally prepare and not worry about all this other stuff like EMP or Chinese or zombies or whatever, you're going to be just as prepared. And you're going to get through it just fine. So put all the angst, put all the anxiety, put all the fear, put that outside your door and live and enjoy life. That's all I got for you all. Everybody stay safe and stay secure, and we'll see you out there.